Hello, welcome back to another SwansCast match preview ahead of this week's match where Swansea take on Southampton at home, which is going to be quite a big game, I think, in Swansea. I don't know how much you realise as Southampton supporters, but Luke Williams, our new manager, used to be Russell Martin's number two. Not sure why they stopped working together. I think they have good respect for each other, but I think maybe some disagreements over certain things, and Luke Williams went on his own way, and it's his first home league game as Swansea boss against last season's very well adored Swansea manager. So it's going to be a tasty affair. And when you also put into the mix the result from Boxing Day, where Russell Martin definitely got one over on Swansea and the Swansea board and ran out comfortable winners, let's just say. I just hope that there's a bit of a better showing this week. And Alfie House is here to help chat about it, tell us all things about Southampton and what we might know from the outside, from the Total Saints podcast. So welcome, Alfie. Thanks for joining me.
Nice one. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting down to Liberty this weekend, to be fair. I think you've summed it up perfectly. I will be. I go to every game, home and away. I cover the club for a local newspaper, so I'll be there for every game.
Well, I hope you have a safe journey. And if you'd like to let everyone know where they can find some of your content as well.
So obviously you can follow the Total Saints podcast if you want your Russell Martin fix every week. But I mean, I imagine it might be quite painful, to be honest, as a Swansea fan. But Total Saints podcast on Twitter, and I'm Alfie House Echo. I work for the Southern Daily Echo. So yeah, if you want to follow along for any sort of masochism reasons, then please do.
So yeah, go give Total Saints podcast a follow. I'm sure some of them might check out a lot of. There's some, good memories from Russell Martin, and some people I think like to follow and see him do success elsewhere. There's reasons why he didn't work here and why he left, and it's more to do with relationships and stuff with the board, and a lot of people have a lot of opinions about it. But I guess, I don't think he left on bad terms with the fans and with the club, other than maybe some of the key personnel who make decisions. So, if he does well elsewhere, good on him, and it looks like maybe on his way to the Premier League. 20 games unbeaten for Southampton after what was a bit of a ropey start, I think, at the start of the season, but expected, I would say, based on what we had with him, in terms of him bringing the style in, the mistakes that come along with that. The difference is, when he did it with us, it was a lot more mistakes and it went on for a lot longer, and it was a lot longer of a transition period. And maybe that's down to the personnel that he had at his disposal. Obviously, going to Southampton, a relegated team from the Premier League, the quality of player there is a lot better. The money you got from some of your sales in the summer allowed him to bring in some players he wanted for his style. And I think he's reaping the rewards of that, as well as adjusting some of his tactics that maybe didn't work so well with us. He's adjusted, evolved the system. And 20 matches unbeaten for Southampton, currently sitting on 55 points in third place. I'm giving it a matter of time before you leapfrog Ipswich. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, they were obviously ahead of them for about 2 hours on Saturday, and that was the first time this season that Southampton have been second. You sort of mentioned the little bit of a ropey start. I think we all expect that, didn't we? Because of the Russell Martin way. It was such a change from what Southampton were doing last season, which was pretty much 99% focus against the ball. Russell Martin, as you'll know, he loves the control of the football, and it is really nice to watch. But they had that 4-game period where they lost 4 games on the spin. They won the first few of the season. They got through them. I think Russell said that they were building in flight, really, but they still managed to find ways to win the games. It was late goals every single week, pretty much. Yeah, but then they had that sort of 4-game period. And I think Russell learned a lot about his squad. He learned a lot about the way he wanted to play. He sort of stopped doing the whole inverted fullback things. Things were slightly more direct, slightly more pragmatic, you would say. But at the same time, he's still 100% sort of sticking to his beliefs. And he comes back to Swansea this weekend as a very popular man on both sides. And he has a lot of admiration for Swansea. He mentions Swansea so much. He's had a couple of little digs at the owners in the build-up to the last game on Boxing Day, which I enjoyed as well. And I think he had nice things to say about Luke Williams as well. So absolute respect on both sides.
Yeah, we saw the comments about the owners, and it's one of them where, I personally think he's also quite clever, right, with what he says. I think he's a very good manager in respect to building a relationship with the community, with the fans, getting them on board. So then when maybe things, and maybe you haven't been in that period yet, but when things aren't going to plan, he's bought himself so much time because of that respect and the relationship that he's built. And I'm not knocking that. I think that's a really good trait to have in a managerial career. If you take out the fact that he managed our club, I feel like it will help him be successful in his career as a manager. But I think also you've got to also think he is trying to progress his career, and sometimes he might be saying things knowing, right, I know I got the Swansea fans on side here. Maybe I can say some stuff here, get them all riled up about their owners before this match, and that goes in our favour, you know. Which I'm not saying what he said wasn't true. There are definitely elements of truth to it, but I don't think it's a complete innocent party in the departure of.
But you'll know
bonds
from
with
his
him.
time at Swansea, like
Yeah.
the little things he does behind the scenes. I think the media team, they play Russell Martin and his staff every single Friday in like a football match inside the training ground dome, things like that. He remembered, but I walked past him with my partner, my girlfriend, like right when he first joined. He remembered that and sort of said, "How was she?
Yeah.
Did you have a nice night?" Stuff like that. So I think there is a real genuine person there.
Yeah.
But of course, it benefits everyone, doesn't it?
No. I mean, the relationship with the fans is genuine, and I
Yeah.
think that's amazing. I've heard a lot of stories similar to what you've just said. I just mean when he's targeting them comments in the media, he knows what he's doing, because But I'm not saying he's not wrong necessarily, but when they then come back at him for the mistakes he made, he's kind of already won the war, if that makes sense. And there's a bit of truth both ways. That's what's key. But I think he's learned. He's here for a reason to develop himself as a manager, and he's definitely learned from those mistakes. So your season so far, I know you spoke about the 4-game streak of where it wasn't going so bad, but what's followed has been, I guess, no one really saw that coming. So can you talk about that run of 20 games?
Yeah, so obviously 19 in the league now. If they avoid defeat this Saturday, it'll be the longest run in the club's history since 1920 when they joined the Football League, which is obviously a remarkable achievement. It was a real turning point when Leeds came to St Mary's, and I actually spoke to the chief executive of the club a couple of days before Leeds came, and that was exactly after the 4 games they'd been defeated. And I even said to him, he was saying they've got 100% faith in Russell Martin, of course, but things might get worse before they get better. But they didn't. Adam Armstrong pulled out 2 really good goals. They beat Leeds 3-1. I think from then it's just been growth and growth and growth. And I think you may have seen it with Swansea last season. They do score late goals often. I think teams get really tired in the last sort of 10, 15, 20 minutes against this Southampton team that have been pinging it around all afternoon. And they've scored a lot of goals from that. But yeah, they've ground out some results. They've absolutely smashed some teams. They smashed Blackburn, obviously Swansea at the weekend as well. Another game.
Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, well, that was obviously an anomaly, wasn't it? I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit, but I think everything that sort of, and you said it on the podcast yesterday with us, everything that sort of added up. It was Boxing Day. It was slightly weird. The players that Saints had available, I think everyone just sort of married up for a really good performance. But Saints will definitely feel there's a chance to go up now. And you're right, Russell Martin wants to be a Premier League manager. He's obviously picked a club where there's every chance of doing that. And it's just now about whether they can sustain this run. I don't think they're going to catch Leicester, because I think that just seems a little bit too far. But Ipswich have only won one of the last 6. So I think there's a lot of belief at Southampton now they'll get it done.
Yeah, 10 points seems like a big stretch to overturn. They've only lost 4 games so far this season. Same as yourselves, but drawing 2 and winning 21 is quite impressive, really. Could happen, I guess, if you win, keep winning, then you never know.
Well, here's the thing, though. I think up until Saturday, they'd obviously, when Saints had been 18 league games unbeaten, obviously Leicester lost on the weekend, so it changed slightly. But Leicester, over that 18-game unbeaten period for Saints, had gained 2 points on Saints because of all the draws they'd had. And even though Leicester had lost games, they've still gone further ahead in the table. So I think they just felt like that's so far out of reach.
Yeah. Well, see what the end of the season brings. I mean, Ipswich look like maybe, I think they're struggling for a striker, but yeah, maybe they're the ones to target, and still a good result in the end, especially given the way the season started. I don't think anyone can complain. But yeah, you mentioned the match against Swansea on Boxing Day there, and it's only an anomaly if it doesn't happen again. Let's be honest. But if you look at our recent results, it is the one that stands out as being a bit out there and a bit odd. I don't think the the results kind of reflect that one in particular. But yeah, what did you think of that match in general then?
Well, I felt massively for Alan Sheehan when he came in to speak to us in the press conference after. You could see a man who was sort of utterly defeated. I think he'd been worn down. You did a good job, didn't you, like you said, for a couple of weeks, but I think he just sort of felt it was so far out of sight, and everything just sort of came together for Saints. They've scored in the last 7 home league games. I think they've scored something like 19 or 21 goals. So it's not like Swansea, the only team that Saints have battered here at St Mary's. They've won 8 games in a row in the league at St Mary's. But the reason I think this one will be different is just because they're not as good away from home, I suppose. But I can't, you know what? It's been so many 4 or 5 nils, and I think it's been 4 nils and maybe a 5-0 the last month. I can't remember who scored the goals against Swansea.
I don't think I really looked after 2 or 3, so, to be honest. But can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, no, it was definitely. I think the players obviously wanted to go and do a good job, but they couldn't quite get it get it to happen on the day. Alan Sheehan has done a really good job during his time as interim boss. But I think the circumstances around that match in general, we needed to have some sort of like structure in place and some sort of direction to go into that match and get a result. And that was the one that was always going to stand out and be a difficult one for Swansea. And so the result proved. Now we're going to this next one with that, but the early stages of it, it's still going to be a tricky task. Luke Williams bringing in a similar style of play to perhaps what Russell Martin does, but in such a much earlier sort of part of that. And the players at their disposal, obviously not quite at the same standard, I would say, across the whole team. There might be one or two that Russell Martin might have taken with him, Mac Rhymes being one, definitely. And I know you asked me, or you mentioned him on your podcast yesterday, and you made a comment about maybe Mac Rhymes is playing Russell Martin ball when the rest of the team isn't. And that kind of has been, I said earlier in the season, that the players that were here last year seemed like they were struggling to adapt to a new way under Michael Duff. And the new players signed, maybe they found it easier and it looked like it was two different teams playing at times. And that would have been ultimately one of the reasons for Michael Duff's downfall. But Mac Rhymes will be instrumental in Luke Williams' system now, which is the reason you were so heavily linked with him in the summer. I know he is our key player in the centre of the park, has been for a number of years. And I know when Russell Martin was here, he was his man, he was his main man. I'm not surprised to see the links. I was shocked to see he signed a new contract, actually, after Russell Martin left. So, I don't know, I was going to ask, though, going into January, I'd imagine you're going to be looking to strengthen in areas. Should we be worried at all for any of our players this time?
Well, no, first thing I'll say about Matt Grimes, I think I had a text message at least once every 2 days during the August period saying, Matt's at the training ground, he's there, he's signing. Obviously, never came to fruition, never was true, but the links were so heavily heavily strong. I think Saints will add somebody tomorrow maybe, Joe Rothwell from Bournemouth on loan. There won't be many additions for Saints this season because although they've come down from the Premier League, they haven't got much money. They spent 150 million quid last season trying to stay up and failed to do so, and therefore had to sort of make all that back. So Joe Rothwell will come in this week from Bournemouth. He'll be the only addition, but he'll probably be on the bench because there's no way that Russell Martin will change his winning team from last weekend. It will be the same 11. So it's be Ryan Fraser, Che Adams, and Adam Armstrong in the front three. So much experience in the Championship, so much experience in the Premier League as well, to be fair, although not all of them did it in the Premier League, obviously. So I don't think that, I'm not predicting a 4 or 5-0 again. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it will be a little bit tighter. I know you smile when I say that, which makes me think, maybe it will.
I just don't know, to be honest. I really don't want to make a prediction for this one because I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, well, I think the lift of having someone come in this week like Joe Rothwell, I predicted on the Saints podcast, I think Saints will be in total control because, and I 100% agree with having a clear direction, a clear identity the club is moving in. I'm so pleased for Swansea and Luke Williams to come back in and do that after sort of a bit of a diversion after so many years. But it's going to take time. We've seen it at Russell Martin at Swansea, we've seen it at Russell Martin here at Saints, and it's going to take time to go back that way as well. And whereas Russell Martin's team are in such a sort of flow state now where everything feels so natural, that all the teams that have come and played at St Mary's rather than sit 10 men behind the ball, they're all the teams that have been battered. So if Swansea are going to try and come to their own stadium in front of their own fans and try and play as well, there's every chance that they get picked apart.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it's one of them days where we catch you on an off day and we manage to. You can see the headline, can't you? We out Russell Martin, but yeah, maybe I'm dreaming, but we'll see. So I'm glad to hear maybe there will be no. I haven't seen, to be fair, links with like the likes of Grimes and I think Nathan Wood wasn't it in the summer.
Yeah.
Who, to be honest, a lot of fans would have allowed that deal to happen, and it's one of those, isn't it? Where it's easy to say in hindsight, but he picked up a 3-month-long injury like the week after I think the transfer deadline passed. And it was like, what was it, links of 10 million, I believe, at the time?
Yeah, well,
Didn't think it was all up front. But,
Saints were genuinely disappointed not to get him. They really tried. I think when Mason Holgate came in on loan, even for Saints, even after that, they were still hoping to get him, but it just didn't work out. Ended up signing Taylor Harbour-Bellis instead, who I suppose you might argue is maybe a slightly higher pedigree.
Maybe. I mean, Nathan Wood hasn't really shown the best of himself this season, but he was a player that Russell Martin brought into Swansea. And was integral really in his system by the end of the season, playing in the centre of the back three, really nurturing him to be the main man in the defence. And he was touted, he was getting links to Arsenal and stuff at the end of last season and touted as a future England international. So I I mean, it's one of those, isn't it? You don't quite see it until you get to that level and perform. But I think a lot of fans would have been happy with 10 million if that was the cash that we would have received for him at the time, and it could have meant we could have spread that out elsewhere, I guess, in the squad. Especially after Perot's money, probably most of that needs to go back into the running of the club.
Yeah.
You want some money for players. Okay, it seems a bit of a silly question to ask yourself, because probably out of all the teams in the league, we know the most out of style of play. But I always ask in these videos, what style of play do you expect to see from Southampton? Maybe you can talk about it in a way that is slightly different from what we saw last season. We can see the differences. But yeah, how is Southampton expected to play on the weekend?
Well, so I mean, do you know what? Maybe you'll have to sort of point the differences out to me from last season with Swansea, but from it'll be 4-3-3 again. You know exactly how Russell Martin plays. He builds out from the back. Everything starts with Gavin Bazunu. And the key philosophy for Russell Martin here at Southampton is find the spare man. So the objective is always to find the spare man, whoever it is. And then he says it doesn't matter if the spare man is the other end of the pitch and you're Gavin Bazunu. That's when you lump it and you hit the far man. But you always find somebody who's in space. So it's a pass and move system. You know it all. You know it inside and out. And the key man is Flynn Downs, really, in that anchor role, playing the number 6, someone you'll be so familiar with, of course. Didn't really work for West Ham.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's obviously the ball comes through Jan Bednarek, the ball comes through Ryan Manning, and it's always Flynn Downs who's then orchestrating from there. But I must say, Ryan Manning as well. I mean, I'm just obviously going to name all the players that you're so familiar with, but he is so integral to the system because
I don't have to ask the questions now, though, do I? So you could tell us all about them.
All right. Well, I mean, Ryan Manning, he's defensively, like as you'll know, he isn't like the most sound, solid player in the world, but every single game he'll have the most touches of the ball, the most progressive passes, the most yards carried. He's always somebody who's receiving the ball from Jan Bednarek to his right and just taking it forward either via Flynn Downs or via somebody else. But they also have Adam Armstrong and Ryan Fraser on the two sides of the wing, sort of flanking Che Adams, and it's constant runs from them in behind. They make continuous, selfless runs. They get the ball maybe once every 10, but when they do, there's a lot of space in behind. So that's the way they play, out from Gavin Zunu, through Flynn Downs, and then out to the wings and constant runs.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference from what he did last season with us. He primarily did a 5 at the back. So the likes of Ryan Manning would have been used as a wing back. He actually was our top assister last season, Ryan Manning, from left wing back. And obviously Flynn Downs
that was personnel based. Did they do that because he felt they didn't have the personnel to play a slightly more expensive?
He kind of signed players for that system. He did start testing the waters with the back four towards the end of the season, and we had quite a successful run. But for the predominantly during his time at the club, it was a 5. You've got obviously wingers there, or players that can play on the wing, in Adam Armstrong, Ryan Fraser. He kind of shipped all of ours out and didn't really use wide players.
Preferred someone like Jamie Patterson, who's slightly more inside.
He's got to the age of his career where he haven't got the pace to be a winger out and out, I think, and he's more of an inside forward or sits behind the striker now. But yeah, so whether that was I think that's one of the things maybe he's learned to with the players he's got there. Maybe he trusts that they'll do the extra work needed to play in a 4 to what he would have in the 5 at the back. Be interesting to know the reasons for it. Obviously, Luke Williams has come in to us now and immediately changed us to a 5, which is what they would have been doing together at the time. And he plays with the wing backs basically up on halfway line, like the wingers in attack, and then expected to like get back quite quick, sharpish when the ball is lost. But yeah, that's probably one of the biggest changes.
You this weekend will be can you control Kyle Walker-Peters on the right? Because if you've got these wing backs that are playing on the highest line, and it will be, is Kyle going to be inside your I suppose your wide defenders every single time, because he's always marauding, always looking to get balls into the box, have a shot on his left foot as well, even though it's his weaker foot. So he could be a key player this weekend.
He'll be up against Josh Timon, so he's good going forward. Maybe it'll be his biggest test defensively, and I guess that's good though, because we can see where he's at. Because again, a lot of praise recently for his output on a team, so he's going to be up against someone who's going to test him defensively. So hopefully he can stand up to that challenge. And then, because he's replaced Ryan Manning for us, and a lot of fans recently have been saying how he's starting to fill the boots a little bit. He's still got a bit to go, if you ask me, but that's fine. It can take time. Ryan Manning had a few seasons here, and he only really established himself as a key player, I would say, second half of the season before last. It'd be interesting though. Does he still have a bit of a temperament on him, Manning, where he gets involved in?
Do you know what? We've not seen that side of it really, but I don't think the situation has risen. But what I will say about Ryan Manning, and I'm lucky enough to have spoken to him a couple of times, and he really is a lovely bloke. However, he's become a bit of a scapegoat for Southampton this season. I think that is starting to subside a little bit now because because Saints are winning every game, and you don't need a scapegoat. But he was the one who was always blamed because he has a bit of a defensive howler in him sometimes. I think people don't really
he does
see what he does going forward as that important, if that makes sense. So he was somebody the fans picked on a little bit, but I think they are actually warming to him a little bit, and obviously he has a great deal of support in certain sections of the club as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably one of the key players for us and gone into a team where he's less influential. Maybe that's one of the things he's had to adjust to, I'd imagine. Okay, so I'll move on then. Switching it to Swansea, I know you've talked about a lot of Southampton. I think we know your key players are. You mentioned Downs there, and your attack is, well, anyone's going to score a goal, aren't they, really? Who do you think the key players are for Swansea that maybe worry you if we were to get a result against you?
Well, I was going to say Jamie Patterson, but you've now told me that he's maybe lost his legs a little bit. But he's somebody who I've always thought is just really clever on the ball and just like quite tidy in possession. And
lost his legs pace-wise, but he is still clever.
I would have said Pat would be the one that I would be worried about. But I mean, I would say that because I grew up a Bristol City fan and I watched him home and away, and he was a good player. But I mean, you go on, fill me in. Who should I be worried about?
In this new system, I guess like Grimes is the one that's going to make things happen. If we play well, it will all go through Matt Grimes, and it's actually a shame because we've had a youngster come through, Sam Parker, who he went off injured against Birmingham, but on the right he's causing some issues now, and he's one of them raw talent players that's come in, and I guess with a new manager playing kind of wing backs with the sort of ability and freedom to go and get involved and make some things happen, then he would be one. But I've already mentioned Josh Timone.
Yeah,
I say his name wrong all the time. I probably said it wrong again. A lot of flack for that. But he got 2 assists against Birmingham, one from a corner, one from a low cross. So he's been given a bit of a freedom to get forward and make things happen on the left-hand side. Difference is he's going to be, as you said, up against Kyle Walker-Peters. So it depends whether he's able to get into some space, I guess, when we got the ball. And if so,
it's not only Kyle Walker-Peters, it's Kyle Walker-Peters and Adam Armstrong. So
exactly. So whether he can get up and actually get the freedom to put in a good delivery. But if so, then he's definitely one that's standing out at the moment and being a bit of a threat. So because that's the way the system operates, is wing backs are the threat, and where the opportunity should come from in this style. So,
well, I suppose saying that, I mean, that is how you get through Southampton at the moment, isn't it? Because you're not going to get through the middle with Flynn Downs and with Taylor Bednarek. Kyle Walker-Peters is a brilliant player. I think he might be, in my opinion, I think he's the best player in the Championship, but I think he's certainly up there. But him and Ryan Manning, I mean, they can be got at in a sort of attacking aspect. So there's no reason why you can't have a bit of joy down the wings. That will be where it comes from if you do.
Yeah. Well, hopefully,
yeah,
we'll see what happens on Saturday. So, okay. That's pretty much everything. I like to end on a little bit of a more novelty note, and I always ask at the end of the videos. The first half of the season I was asking about the drinks, but we've changed it up for the second half. And the question is, what is the favourite or best footy scran you've ever had when you've been to a stadium, any stadium?
Oh. Do you know what? That's a really good question. I think from a media point of view, obviously being a journalist, I'm going to have to say Chelsea because they put on this spread worthy of kings. I mean, there's like 2 or 3 different dessert options. You've got brownies, jam donuts, all this sort of stuff. You've got a pasta section, a sandwich section, and a hot curry section, things like this. And I just think that nobody who works in the media deserves that. Nobody who works in the media deserves that. But I'm more than happy to enjoy it. So I would have
they
to
got plenty of money though, and they are Chelsea, so just take it.
Absolutely. I mean, that would be my answer. I was going to ask you a question, if I don't know if you can.
Yeah, go for it.
I was going to ask you about the relationship between Swansea and Southampton, because obviously we've taken a lot of people from Swansea, Andy Goldie, Jack Chapman, who are 2 really important people in the academy as well, who I get on really well with. They're really great guys. They seem to be really good at their job, and I think like, it's a lot of people to lose in one summer.
I think it's the normal situation when you get a manager that goes to a bigger club. If he's been successful, they quite often like to take some key personnel from their time, didn't they? Like Luke Williams has brought 2 guys in with him now from Notts County, so I guess it's kind of the same sort of thing, but they're having a mid-season, so if anything, maybe is a bit worse. I think there's no bad relationship from that aspect. I think where any issue might arise, and I haven't actually had an update on this for a while, was the whole compensation thing that was going on with Russell Martin. So I haven't seen if there's even been a conclusion to that. I was assuming maybe if it's in court, it's going to drag on a bit. But do you know anything on that?
No, I don't, I'll be honest. No, but it went on, like, even this summer, it was going on for a good sort of 3 weeks before.
Well, that's what delayed the announcement, wasn't it? And kind of Yeah, it was a bit frustrating to not kind of have clarity on what was going on, but I understand why they couldn't necessarily share. I don't know all the details. I guess no fan knows all the details, but from our perspective, it looked like the argument was Southampton getting relegated, so the close of a Premier League club poaching Russell Martin wasn't a thing. And Swansea was saying, well, you approached us while you're in the Premier League still. So, and technically, I guess that's true because they did. The season hadn't finished. The Premier League season hadn't finished when it happened. So I understand why they'd be pursuing the higher payday there, but it'll be interesting to see how that results. Because, I mean, for a club like us, that's a decent chunk that
100%.
Now we haven't got parachutes anymore. You know, we've lost all that Premier League money really, and anything like that is good income. So got to chase it.
It's that side of football you don't really see that often. I thought it was a very bizarre situation. Made things really drag on. But yeah, I can understand both clubs' perspective because I can see why Saints want to count the pennies. But for Swansea, it must be frustrating.
Yeah, for the fans, it's not so much any bitterness towards Southampton. I think it's more the whole like Russell Martin is there. Our board should have done more to keep him here.
Yeah,
that's the issue they will have. The fact that it's Southampton, I don't think it really matters, if that makes sense.
No, I think Russell will be really happy to come back there this weekend. I'm sure he'll be seeing a lot of people that he's not seen for a while and have a good time. I hope.
Yeah, I think he'd be well received. Hopefully not too well received, obviously, but after the match, maybe if we get a result, we can clap him off then. But yeah. Anyway, good luck for the rest of your season. I'm sure it's going to end well for you. It looks like I said, I fully expect you're going to clinch that second place spot, to be honest. But hopefully we can make it a bit more difficult for you this weekend. But can I get a prediction out of you before you go?
Yeah, I'll go for the same score I went yesterday, which was 2-0 win for Saints. I think they'll score one early and then get a bit of a lift when a debut player comes on, Joe Rothwell, and then I think they'll score a second late.
I think I said 2-1, but I don't think we're going to win. So, but I hope we do, of course. But head's telling me maybe this one's a little bit too difficult. But this will be a good performance, a much better performance than what we had Boxing Day, and I think everyone will be happy. So, thanks for joining me anyway, Alfie. Do you want to remind everyone where we can find your content and your pre-match stuff as well, like we did yesterday?
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you for having me. Hopefully we don't see you next year. But if we do, then please do invite me back on. But you can get me at Alfie Alseco on Twitter or follow the Total Saints podcast, guys. They do a great show every weekend.
Yeah, go check them out. And yeah, well, if we have this second half of the season we want, we'll be seeing you next year in the Premier League. But I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us. And see you again soon.